So I didn't have all weekend to drive. In fact, I only had 1 hour and I had to make as much money as possible. And if you're someone like me that drives part-time, if you have a growing family, if you're thinking about doing food delivery, maybe on a short-term basis, this video would be perfect because we're gonna go over my trips that I took and why and how much you can make. So first of all, 1 hour of driving is perfectly fine, especially if you find yourself with some slow time in between, let's say, errands or dropping your children off or what have you. An hour or two or whatever it happens to be is perfectly fine. That is the flexibility and benefit of food delivery. So what it did on this shift was I actually multi-apped, which is driving more than one food delivery app at the same time and only choosing the one best order that is making you the most money. So this 1 hour shift actually was full of ups and downs for only being 60 minutes, from stacked orders to driving across the city to customers texting me off of the app telling me to change the delivery address to a whole bunch of confusion. I'm going to explain exactly what happened. Let's get into this power hour shift. So my first order was Carson Street Deli and Craft Beer Bar. You can see the blue dot, that's where my car is located. And on this shift, this was a stacked order. That means I got two orders at the very same time at the same restaurant, in this case for $11.03. Let's look at the dollars per mile. So when you're driving food delivery, if you're new or you're a veteran driver, these are exactly the orders you're looking for. These stacked orders where the customer location is close by in the same area, and best case scenario, both orders are from the same restaurant, which in this case it was. And again, the dollars per mile, you can see I was driving around 4 miles and getting paid $11 for it. So that's a really good ratio to start my shift. So this one was pretty straightforward. I went into the restaurant, I waited. Now there was a delay. So what I would tell you is anytime you get to the restaurant and it's not ready, to make sure you get the highest tip and the best earnings rating from the customer, you want to make sure you communicate, hey, I'm waiting on the restaurant. And you can do that. You have to go into each separate order and tell the customer individually. So when you do this, there's an option that says, I am waiting on the restaurant. And typically the customer will just say, okay, or thank you. But it goes a really long way because the customer is seeing you at their location and they're just looking at their phone, waiting and waiting and waiting, and they don't see you moving or picking up the order. So you want to explain why you're still at that restaurant waiting on the restaurant. So when I tell you I experienced the whole realm of possibilities on this 1 hour power shift, I really did. And there's some tips I want you to know that'll help you make the most money and again, gain the highest rating, which is really important to stay on all these platforms. And here's what it is. So when you're looking at your app and you click navigate to get to the customer's location, well, sometimes there's specific instructions that don't really seem to make sense. You might have to read them once or twice again to really have it make sense. And this was one of them. My order actually had me delivered to a retail store in the location I was in of the south side of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And at first, you're looking at this instruction and thinking, well, how can I deliver to a retail store? Who's going to get this food? Well, it's most likely for an employee that works there, and that was exactly the case. And just to be sure, a tip that I would give you, it's completely okay to go into the restaurant and confirm with the person picking up the order their name. You do not want to just leave the order outside of a strip mall or the entrance of a store out front. You want to go into the store and say, I have a Grubhub or I have a DoorDash or so-and-so. Again, if they're expecting you to do that, and then you just drop it off on the side of the road, if you will, or the entrance of the store, they might not see it for a while and they're waiting for you to come inside. So just make sure to follow the instructions. On this order, that's exactly what I had to do. So you're driving for an hour or two and you're thinking, well, how can I make the most money? Well, here's what you don't want to do. A really good example of what might seem tempting, but something you want to avoid doing. Again, remember, we talked about that dollars per mile. We would like to make, in a perfect world, 2 times the amount of money that we're driving for that order. So if I'm driving 5 miles, I want to get paid 10 miles. Let's look at this example. So this one at first might seem like a pretty tempting order. It's for $9.43. And mind you, this was around lunchtime, 1:45 p.m. on a Saturday. And for $9, this looks pretty good. And typically I would take it. But if you look at where the customer is, it's actually a good bit away outside of the city. And typically for you, or maybe for another driver, this might be okay. But I know this area of Pittsburgh has no restaurants. The long story short, when you see an order like this, it's up to you. It's good money, but you might waste time driving back into the city, maybe hitting traffic or whatever happens to be. This is why we recommend getting out there and driving and just learning your city, because I know if I take this order, it's going to take me a long time to get back to the restaurants where all the action is. Another tip, if you only have a few hours but you want to make the most money, is look at the peak pay on DoorDash or Uber Eats, those boost zones. And basically what this comes down to is, take a look at this. This is the map of when I was driving on this particular Saturday. It was only $1 peak pay. And that means it's adding $1 to that earnings potential on your food delivery orders. So $1 isn't really that much, but again, if you're driving multi-apping, you want to pick the best order for you. So factor this in. It's not going to change a whole lot at a $1 peak pay, but something to think about. Here's a question for you. Would you take this trip? At $4.25 for Popeyes, well, it's right across the river and it looks like it's taking me to a busy area. Would you take this order? I actually declined this order because although it's a short trip, think about the time that you have to get to that restaurant, and I just got this order as I was completing another order. So it's very likely that the restaurant also just got that order, meaning when you get there, you probably gonna have to wait, and then you're gonna have to drive to the customer. And for $4, I know at this busy time on the weekend, I could find something better, and here it is. A $17 stacked order with a great miles per dollar earnings at 6 miles driven, approximately 6 to 7 miles for a $17 payout, almost 3 times the pay per mile. So let's get into this one. This order from Prince of India and Wings Over. You can see where my blue dot is again. You might say, well, Matt, that's basically the same distance as the one previously you told us to decline. You're crossing the river. Is this taking you far outside of that area of high demand? Well, actually, that's just to pick up the food delivery. If you see the home icons, you can see both customers are very near to each other. So I know if I make this straight line down and pick up both orders on that trip, I'll loop right back around and I'll be able to drop off these orders very, very quickly because I'm not traveling way across the city to actually deliver the orders. They're in the same neighborhood. Also, something I do want to mention, again, I only had about an hour, so this is actually right around the neighborhood where I wanted to end up. So that does factor in as well. Let's say you're wrapping up your shift or whatever happens to be. If it's taking you the direction that you need to be, maybe to pick up your children or whatever it happens to be, and your time is finished and you want to be there, that's another thing that might factor in to taking those orders in a specific location. So here's where things got a little off. So I was picking up the first order, kind of a long wait. Again, I told the customer, hey, I'm waiting on the restaurant. And then I went ahead and picked up the second order, no problem. As I was picking up the second order, the first order texted me and said, can you deliver to another address? What should you do? Well, you want to confirm with them, hey, this is Joe Smith, correct? And you want me to deliver your address that was previously 123 Main Street to this new address. Is that correct? And you want to send them that in the app so that it is tracked on that order that you specifically said, hey, Mr. Customer, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you reached out to me. You made this request to change the delivery address. Can you confirm? So long story short, I contacted the wrong customer. I had 2 orders. I accidentally texted the wrong customer. And as soon as I sent it, I realized what had happened. And I said, I apologize. That was actually meant for my first customer. I'll be right to your location after I complete their order. And then no harm was done. They said, no worries. And I made the deliveries in the time that I was supposed to. So crisis avoided, but just something to pay attention to when you're contacting them. Make sure you have the right customer, of course, but that one was perfectly fine. So let's go over how much I made on this power hour shift and go over all of the numbers. I drove from 1:45 p.m. to 2:45 p.m. on this shift. I made a gross revenue of $28.10. And of course, for that 1 hour of driving, I made $28.10 per hour. I completed 4 deliveries and received tips on all 4 deliveries for a total of $16.05 for an average of $4.01 per tip. I drove 10 business miles, which gives us a fairly strong $2.81 pay per mile. And based on those miles, my tax deduction is $6.25. So even if you only have an hour of driving, it is definitely possible to set yourself up for some really good success at $28 per hour. If I kept on that pace, it would definitely add up quickly. So let me know what you thought about this video by dropping a like. And again, my name is Matt. I am Mike's twin brother on his channel, Your Driver Mike. If you do like this content, consider subscribing and make sure to tap or click the screen here for a video recommended to you. And we'll see you in the next video.